The construction of the route was even more complex than imagined. Titan Star was a new planet, so everything was a blank slate. No matter what they did, they had to start from scratch. The imminent challenge for Yan Xiaoshu and the rest was far more complex than they had imagined. They had indeed acquired the permit from the Milky Way Alliance authorities, but this did not mean that the transport route could begin construction immediately. There were many more intermediary processes to cross, and there was no way around them. The regulations and formalities regarding a transport route was no simple matter of drawing a line on a planetary map. They had to follow the rules. It did not mean that the Milky Way Alliance's permission meant a free pass on legality issues. No matter where the route passed, if it infringed on local planetary rights or there was a possibility for collision with other routes, then confirmation and negotiations needed to occur. Everything was good in their minds. The new transport route's profits should have been smooth and unobstructed. But in real operations, they would soon discover that inconveniences and profits often came hand in hand. Not every country along the route was interested. Some were conservative planets, and were worried that the new transport route would disrupt their orderly lives. Throughout the history of humanity's development, there was much that could not be judged by the common value system of humanity. On a closer look, there were still many who were satisfied with what they had and resisted change. Very quickly, Yan Xiaoshu was coming to realize that such matters required a professional and experienced export company to manage matters. If he did it himself, one planet alone would be enough to worry them silly. And this was a planet which was interested in the new transport route. All kinds of requests and tactics would be employed to eat all his profits. If there was any disagreement, at least a few months of negotiations would be required before proceeding. Many export countries had come knocking on their door, but they were unsuited. Either they were hungry lions treating Yan Xiaoshu and the rest like inept idiots, or they were amateurs without the appropriate resources. Find a problem, solve a problem. Yan Xiaoshu did not throw his weight around. With Jasper, Laurel, and Gabra, they reflected on their actions. It had been his miss to not arrange with an export company. Their blind arrogance had overestimated the attractiveness of the new trade route. Sometimes, benefits did not mean unobstructed access. Most of the time, it was a trap instead. Jasper and the rest were feeling abashed. The way they looked at it, Brother Yan was faultless. Brother Yan had already handled the most difficult Milky Way Alliance permit. What more could they ask of him? The company belonged to everyone, and the profits were fairly split. The sum that Brother Yan had given them had far exceeded the number they had expected. These were small things which they should be able to handle. If everything had to be brought to Brother Yan, then what were they for? In the past, they could still say that they had investors and investments. Did Brother Yan lack for these things now? When they thought about it seriously, it was quite a scary thing. If they did not prove their own value further, then how could they stand in Brother Yan's inner circle? In the Titan Chamber of Commerce, there were others who did their best to cozy up to Yan Xiaoshu. Those who were capable and also fawners were too many to count. For the sake of friendship, for old times, Brother Yan did value his relations deeply, but their emotional link would dry up. They had to earn their own dignity, not have it handed to them on a plate. But such a matter was indeed not something that could be solved in an hour and a half. The average shipping company did not have the capability to make a transport route, but the huge shipping companies capable of the work would skew the negotiations. It was a long-term balance. In the short term, there would be little that could change. But the transport route would wait for nobody, and this was not just Titan Star's problem. Maklu's side was pushing for progress as well, and some good news was trickling in. This was welcome, and everyone was glad that the construction of the route was progressing in some ways. But their own side was stalling, and it was painful to hear every time. Yan Xiaozu was actually also completely at a loss. He had started this too fast. Besides Titan Star and the old solar system home, there was no real human network. Besides, Wang Zheng was pushing so fast that it was difficult to keep up even if one flew. But exactly at these times, he had to be calmer than the rest, and look as though he was in control. But the more he appeared composed, the more Jasper and the rest wanted to perform. Laurel looked at Yan Xiaoshu. Actually, given her background and networks, there definitely was a way. But as a woman, she was not as simple-minded as Jasper and Gabra. But no matter how she looked at it, she could not tell if Yan Xiaoshu actually had a trump card. If needed, she would play her cards. She would not pass up on the profits from a transport route. But now was the crucial time. If they succeeded, they would be rolling in the money. Not only her, but her entire family would be red-eyed with passion. Laurel smiled and said, "Difficult or not, I feel like we have to go proactive. It's not that I don't want to. But people from these major shipping groups are like body parts on a dragon. Within the company, all of them are mouthpieces with no real decision-making power." Gabra shook his head. In these 2 days, he and Jasper had gone looking. The problem was that they could not find anybody, they could only wait for news. They were also very clear that the opponent had caught them in a painful spot. They had purposely trapped them, and they felt obvious resistance. Laurel looked at Yan Xiaoshu again, and still kept her gentle smile. She did not hesitate, but pulled out a prepared invitation. In a few days, there is a special government meeting in the capital of Lea Sphinx. If everything goes according to plan, a few chairpersons of some major shipping companies will be present. I'm a little familiar with the chairperson of New Time Shipping Company. I could introduce everyone at that time. Hopefully things turn for the better. New Time Shipping Company, Lea Sphinx's largest shipping company, with profound experience in developing shipping. Their networks were far-reaching, and also one of the companies that Jasper and Gabra would dearly love to speak with. After all, this transport route needed a superpower as a backer. It was naive to think that Genesis Coffee Club alone would suffice. In the end, everyone looked towards Yan Xiaoshu. Go or not, his decision. Yan Xiaoshu felt like their ship had fortuitously straightened at the river bend. He nodded. Another option is always welcome. Laurel, we're counting on you this time. Kiki, brother Yan is very serious. We're in the same boat, and I can't just stand by. Kiki, good. I like it. Yan Xiaoshu nodded decisively. He looked at the invitation. He knew that this invitation was an important one, but Laurel was still hiding things from them. To think that she already had this solution prepared but had kept her mouth shut all the while. In truth, Tyrant Sue did not like this way of doing things. It was fine if people were bragging. But to steal business from him was not welcome. Co-group's leadership and authority was not something he could give up. Jasper and Gabra were already under his thumb, but Laurel, honestly, was more worldly, and this much was insufficient to convince her. Yan Xiaoshu had no intentions of kicking Laurel out, because Co-group needed such strong allies if it wanted to take off. And for those capable ones like Laurel, it was only to be expected if she was not fully on board yet. If she was not swayed, then he would find a way to sway her. The truth is that from the perspective of a warrior, Wang Zheng is someone that deserves respect. Aurora had given a verdict in the end. Wang Zheng's performance during IG was something that he had to concede to when he recalled it. Yan Xiaoshu's character growth was not impaired, although he had begun from a lowly status of selling sanitary towels. This second-generation heir was not unreasonable and arrogant. On the contrary, he was even more grounded. Old Yan was a classic businessman. He had made his living through a small business and economical acumen. He understood business relations, and Yan Xiaoshu had picked those up too. But Yan Xiaoshu was, after all, a student of Ares College. His worldview was different, and his ability to learn was uncommon. He had learned much from Yi Zisu and Yi Bingwen. Many ways of acting were learned on the job. A different world and a different route. But the results were not bad. The important thing was that Yan Xiaoshu had captured hearts. The two brothers had rather different personalities. If Wang Zheng had been left with the business, his temperament could not have taken it, but Yan Xiaoshu could hold it in. But on the battlefield, Yan Xiaoshu would be dead before the gunshot was even heard. SEG had tens of thousands of viewers, but after the competition started, the distinction was very clear. Normal matches had a very small viewership, with a majority of the attention focused on the famous teams. The seeded competitors were a given, but there was also a group of excellent teams, such as the ones from the superpower countries. Although they were not seeded teams, their ability was clear. Saruman's Snake Battle team was definitely hot, a red-hot favorite. Who had let them take the alpha spot of first seed? Many wanted to see their skill level. There was clearly no need to conceal in SIG. Each of the militaries had their own reports, and were paying attention to their own country's fights. The first day was also very important to the solar system. Saruman's Snake Battle Team, Dynasty Battle Team, as well as the two internal teams of the solar system, were all battling. The four small beauties, Lin Weiyan, Dong Ouyang Ruolyu, and Qian Shuidi, were excitedly gathered. Given their status, it was not appropriate for them to show up live. The preliminaries had huge crowds, and was completely public. If they turned up in numbers to watch a team, it would attract all sorts of speculation. It was better to sequester themselves at home. Although they were at home, the conditions were unbelievably good. Ouyang Ruolyu's house. It was not as exaggerated to the point where she monitored the whole Milky Way alliance, but whatever she wished to see did not pose any problem. As for the few Aslan teams, they had not the slightest interest. They would definitely win. There was no suspense. More importantly, there was no one there they cared about. After the last incident, all the girls' interest had been hooked, especially since it was the guy that Aina liked. There had been a persistent rumor that during the last IG, the princess had actively bestowed a kiss. In the end, it had been quashed into silence, but nothing slipped past Ouyang Ruolyu. At the start, she had thought it was gossip, and had been too lazy to pursue it, but now it looked real. This man had attracted Aslan's goddess. Ouyang Ruolyu did not see herself as inferior to anyone, but she held nothing but respect for Aina. Aina was Aslan's symbol and future. Dong had initially felt that the guy was just like that, but now it was a completely different matter. Why hasn't Wang Zheng appeared yet? Is the opponent strong? I hope they're not too weak. That would be meaningless. Qian Shuidi had already prepared the snacks, and was ready for a good show. Mossy Republic is okay. They're heavily influenced by Aslan, they shouldn't be that weak. Wang Zheng won't show, right? Seems like the rest have already arrived. I've basically seen all of Saruman's Snake Battle Team's battle footage in the past. They're completely dependent on Wang Zheng holding it solo. When he's around, this team is C tier. When he's not, it's C tier. Ouyang Ruolyu laughed. It was not just them that thought this way. Everyone did. This Saruman Snake Battle Team was like a broken car, carried thus far by Wang Zheng alone. In the past battles, everyone saw Wang Zheng's overwhelming power, and nothing else mattered. They had been outshined. Achilles, Lai Xin, and the rest, their skill level did not seem so important anymore. The truth, actually, Wang Zheng had diarrhea since morning. He had already been to the toilet more than 10 times, and the doctor had come as well. He said it might have been the lack of acclimatization. Wang Zheng was in disbelief. Acclimatization? Damn, he had no problems even in the abyss, let alone anywhere else. Wang Zheng was very confident in his own body's tenacity, and this was off. He must have been targeted. Wang Zheng's digestive and adaptive ability had no problems. He was too busy to wonder who had set him up now, because Saruman Snake's first battle was about to start. Damn, all he wanted to do was be a good cheerleader. Was that so difficult? That's right. From the start, Wang Zheng had not intended to fight. The opponent was just some third-rate team. It was no exaggeration. They had made it here, but did the opponent really think that a team like Saruman Snake would fight at full power? Ai Xiaolu had already collected all the information on their opponent. Leader Sabi was a strength type. He was not bad, but his skill level was considered average at Elite Academy. Wang Zheng had gone through all kinds of major trials, and this battle was a good time for the reserves to get their hand in. Of course, a few of the core needed to guarantee the win. That was why he wanted to be a good cheerleader. Wang Zheng, what's wrong? Not recovered yet? Luo laughed. You wouldn't be nervous, would you? Wang Zheng grimaced. I'm really nervous, I'm seeing things. A joke that no one believed. Even Luo did not buy it. This was not even a thing. Did someone do something? The competition security was rather tight. The key was that these students were all pros, and drugging was not an easy task. Besides, it was extremely easy to check. Unless someone's ability X was in this aspect, and who would have the incentive? Even someone with ass for brains would know it had to be the Mossy team. Anyone who understood him would not use this trick on him at this time. I'm going to the toilet. Go, go. The battle's about to start. Ai Xiaolu smiled exasperatedly. The members fighting for the Saruman Snake Battle Team were Achilles, Zhongshan, Snowly, Takumi, and Vincent. Zhongshan was on Scout, Achilles on Free Fighter, Vincent, Offensive Fighter, Takumi Tank, and Snowly on Sniper. Although Wang Zheng was missing, this lineup was still very strong. Of course, this was Saruman Snake's own assessment, which the audience did not share. Only after Wang Zheng had attained countless achievements did the public feel that this Earthling was special. This meant that besides him, the other solar system people were trash. Saruman Snake was not the first fight. On another field, the Ghana battle team and the solar system's battling Tiger battle team had already begun. The enthusiastic spectators from the solar system's military schools were already silent. That expression was. The Ghanans were crushing. That Kakin tank was single-handedly beating the battling Tiger battle team to a pulp. Only the Kakins could wield the four-tusk flying demon mech. It had 4 arms and a compound vision system with no blind spots. It was aggressive in nature, and used an attack style that humans were completely not used to dealing with. In an instant, the battling Tiger battle team was crumbling. Only their sniper was being chased by the Ghana scout like a mangy dog, and finished off last. It was not news that the Ghanans liked to taunt their opponents. The Ghana people's character had always been low within the Milky Way Alliance moral spectrum. Although they were not a gray area, they were not much better. Conscience, how many dollars for a gram? They would deal with losers however they liked. If they were on Ghana Star, the losers would be treated like slaves. Who would deny them their fun? Forgan had not showed. They did not need him for such a weak opponent, so weak that it gave one goosebumps. This had won him back all the pride he had lost 2 days ago. Posturing without ability, asking to die, it seemed like not many people were watching this fight. Besides the countries of the competitors, not many had come to watch. The rest were SIG official observers and reporters. It was clear that this fight was extremely disappointing. They were on a completely different level. It was not even a matter of tactics. They simply could not withstand their opponents. In the other group, the Warring Dragon battle team was the same. Of course, their opponent was not as formidable, and they were not getting trashed. But the outcome did not change. After the first round for the solar system's 2 teams, the solar system would definitely become a laughing stock. They had chosen a name that was normally in the domain of the strong teams, and they had been too weak. A bark worse than their bite. In the post-match interview, Ghana sent their leader, Forgan, because the Kakins were not interested. Captain Forgan, as the victor, can you give the battling Tiger battle team some pointers for improvement? The reporter's question was also very interesting, but it was mainly because the difference had been too stark. Ghana and Tiger's battle had been one of the larger disparities so far. This bunch of trash should not have even come, Forgan spat out aggressively. International relations. Sorry, Ghanans were Ghanans. They had never cared, nor was it within their considerations. As long as a Ghanan had the opportunity for revenge, they would take it with no qualms. At Saruman Snake's side, Masi's leader, Sabi, very boldly put out his pre-battle message. They could defeat the Saruman Snake battle team. Wang Zheng was not actually going to the toilet this time. If it was Ability X, it could not be untraceable. Who could it be? His mental energy reached out, and Wang Zheng indeed found a trace. Because that sliver of feeling was in the toilet. Flies gritted his teeth and swallowed 2 more. He had to continue his own diarrhea. If Wang Zheng dared to go up, he would see him release his bowels on the battlefield. His ability X was reflection. He made a mental rune on his target, and then if he had diarrhea, his target would feel the same. Of course, the effectiveness depended on the target. Such a mental mark was light. Minds were complex, and emotions were susceptible to change. To the person being targeted, they might merely sneeze suddenly, or shiver. It might be no more serious reaction than this. This was the drawback of his skill. Of course, he had to suffer as well. The reflection ability was limited. It did not mean that hacking himself would damage them as well. Firstly, he was not so stupid. Secondly, it would be ineffectual. Only diarrhea seemed to work particularly well. Wang Zheng's understanding of mental energy, especially his perception skills, completely outclassed his opponent. This was also an unexpected failure. Who knew that such a strange ability existed in this world? The Mossy battle team people were really a bunch of fools. He had not planned to participate from the start, but he had been inflicted with diarrhea. All he could do was purge himself. Flies felt a little strange. He had eaten too, and his stomach was already churning furiously, but there seemed to be no feedback. Unfortunately, this Wang Zheng's constitution seemed to be prodigious. This was a crucial matter. Flies gritted his teeth. If he did not commit, he might not be able to topple him. Even if he entered the hospital, he would be the team martyr. Others had flashy ability X's, but his would never be seen, or it would be useless. He was not convinced, which was why he had begged leader Sabi this time around. But in his heart, he was clear that if this failed, he would be deemed useless. He gritted his teeth and swallowed the entire bottle of laxatives. After a few seconds, splat, 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 Flies felt like his own intestines were about to drop out as well, but there was a beatific smile on his face. Even if the opponent was made of steel, he would cave to this one. But he felt like he could not hold on much longer. He was done for now. He had to make an emergency call. Damn, he forgot to bring his Skylink. He had orchestrated this beautifully from start to end, and brought nothing, in case others wanted to find clues on his person. After the competition ended, everything would be covered up. Perfect. The problem was, now he could hold on no longer, and the door, why would it not open? Flies panicked, and gave it a violent jerk. The door did not budge, but his legs gave way and he fell to the floor. And then, splat, 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 it all came out. Student Wang had already finished washing his hands. He was in a clear state of mind, and was about to go see the competition. It felt good, the purge. But Student Wang had still used quite a lot of time. When he returned to the battle, things were already almost wrapped up. Wang Zheng not only did not participate, but he had not even been present. Such a blatant snub of the opponent. Just when it seemed like the Saruman Snake Battle team would fall to their hubris, Achilles brought the Saruman Snake Battle team to victory in a manner that was beautiful beyond criticism. Reviewing footage often made one feel that the opponent was only so-so. Only after facing them for real did they understand the difference. All 5 positions had been beaten thoroughly. Saruman Snake's fight had been smooth, and even easier than their internal practice. They easily thrashed their opponent. "You're only here now, is your stomach better?" Ai Xiaolu asked. "You're about to be destroyed by word and pen. Everyone says you're arrogant." "That's libel for sure. I had diarrhea, isn't that reasonable?" Wang Zheng was speechless. "Hee, who asked you to be popular and incite grudges?" Luo said. She had also discovered that teasing Wang Zheng was a very enjoyable pastime. "When did I invite grudges?" Even before the competition, the leader, Sabi, expressed intense dissatisfaction towards you. 1. Condescending. 2. Unworldly. 3. Cavalier. Ai Xiaolu could not resist adding. Wang Zheng shrugged irritably. Well, someone paid attention in vocabulary class. The 2 girls laughed uncontrollably. Wang Zheng was fun to tease. As they chatted, the competition had already come to an end. Perhaps it did not mean much to Wang Zheng, but Takumi, Vincent, and Snowly had been a little nervous. After all, they did not have much experience in major competitions. These 3 were classic student soldiers. As for Achilles, he was experienced, and Zhang Shan went without saying. He was not a normal person. Walking out from the simulation room, Sabi and his team were pale in the face. They had set a new terrifying record. The opponent's shields were undamaged. They had either dodged or blocked everything. The moment there was a 0 damage record, the system would confer a special prize, a perfect symbol. The thing was, Sabi had confidently declared the Saruman Snake Battle team crushed, and had criticized Wang Zheng from head to toe, because he knew that Wang Zheng could not participate. He was right about one part, but not the other. Saruman Snake, half fielded with their reserves, had still shut down their opponent. This was not a battle, this was a stomp. In truth, besides those who were just here for the show, not many other strong teams were around. At this level, the real opponents all knew that a puny team like Mossy was of no use, and not worth watching. Anything they saw would be of little value as well. Sabi led his team away without a backward glance. He did not wish to stay here, afraid that others would mark him. It might even affect his exchange to the Royal College. Ping, he had not even finished turning when he collided into a full hug with someone covered in, was that *T. Captain, I've been set up. My ability was completely useless against him. This was Flies, who had crawled up with much difficulty. Sabi had already sent a slap flying. Shut your mouth, what are you talking about? At this moment, they could not escape notice if they wanted to. What on earth happened? Zhang Shan walked over in high spirits. His performance had been not bad. No matter who the opponent, a win from the get-go felt good. Why does this guy look like he fell in a latrine? Not looks like, he did. Wang Zheng laughed as well. He could not be bothered with how this would be handled, but this incident was indeed a reminder. There were many outsiders at SIG, and dirty hands would definitely be played. This time around, the opponent was weak, but if his opponent was strong, he would still face interference. Seemed like this had been a good thing. Wang Zheng's largesse did not mean that Ai Xiaolu would let it go. She was the manager of Saruman Snake, and was present for dealing with matters like this. Sabi, that name indeed sounded like a fool's. Unsatisfied, Qian Shuidi pouted. She had prepared all the snacks for the show, and then he had not even taken part. This hollow feeling was most unwelcome. Sister Ruoliu, what on earth is going on? Dong was also surprised. The first match was so important, but Wang Zheng had not come. Perhaps among the four, only Wei Yan had been prepared. Only those who had seen him live would know of Wang Zheng's might and confidence. Seems like we underestimated this student Wang. He's really confident to send reserves in the first round. In Ouyang Ruoliu's heart, outsiders should be more prudent. It was expected that they would flaunt their strength in such an important competition, but the truth seemed far from that. This guy seemed to have some modicum of maturity. The Saruman Snake Battle team had not much in the way of a celebration. As the winner of Greatest King, this was expected. They had to change the public opinion of them through battle after battle. Zhang Shan was still feeling good. When Wang Zheng was not around, he could shine. Achilles was the silent commander, and did not like the limelight. In Zhang Shan's words, he was one of those who liked to sit in the shadows and control the entire field. Although it sounded a little sinister, this suited Achilles' character. Given such a chance to shine, Vincent and Takumi were both pretty happy. The first day saw many strong teams qualify smoothly, and the seeded teams basically all sent a mix of their reserves, with no teams showing their full strength. Of course, this was when they understood their opponent's ability. An upset now would be a joke. Returning to base camp, Wang Zheng and the rest could not muster much joy. Each team's Skylink had SIG reports, which continually updated with group news. The 10-seeded teams were definitely a highlight, including a simple introduction of the Saruman Snake Battle team. As for the other matches, the other main feature was the fight between the Solar System's Battling Tiger Battle Team and Ghana's Demon Battle Team. Perhaps because of the minor pre-match incident at the restaurant, Ghana's Demon Battle Team had used the most immoral bullying tactics to fight. The few clips all painted scenes of the Battling Tiger Battle Team being toyed with. If they had surrendered at this time, that would have been fine. But perhaps because of Wang Zheng's encouragement, the Battling Tiger Battle Team had held on to the last, but their fate was even worse then. Wang Zheng, Zhang Shan, and the rest watched till the end of the competition without a word. They prayed that Ghana Battle Team would fall into their hands, so they could show them an existence worse than death. Although it was a battle, there was still a moral baseline. If one did not have the skills, one could only bow gracefully. But the battle had been too ugly, and completely robbed the Solar System team of all dignity. Ghana was also a customarily strong team. They must have been underestimated. This was also because Ghana Star's reputation was not good, but Aslan's report had also done nothing but fan the flames. Such a matter was not settled with verbal shots. One had to pick oneself up after falling down. If the Solar System wanted to become strong, they would really have to rack their brains. Wang Zheng's Skylink rang. It was Xiao Fei. Wang Zheng hurriedly answered. Lady Xiao Fei had to be mad. She was the manager of the two Solar System teams, but they had been beaten badly. In truth, she knew that the two teams were on the weak side, but the Solar System had chosen to come off the sidelines this time, with an attitude of learning and understanding the difference. They had not expected such a thing to happen. The problem was that tens of thousands of solar system students had seen this scene. The Ganons were too much. But students were naive. If Xiao Fei made a fuss out of it, they would only be exposing themselves further. The logic of this world was that the weak would feed the strong. The Ganons had not been nice, but why would they have to be? Wang Zheng, if you meet the Ganons, teach them a lesson for me. Lady Xiao Fei's fire was up. She wanted to use this opportunity to get Aries College known. Perhaps their results would not be ideal, but at least it would be positive. And now it was the reverse. At one side, Zhang Shan was quick to assure her, while Wang Zheng was brooding. Actually, I don't think this is a bad thing, but the school needs to guide them well. The reason we were shamed is that our ability was insufficient. We can't be like ostriches with our heads in the sand. This is a good opportunity. As Wang Zheng spoke, Xiao Fei immediately calmed down. She understood where he was coming from. Given Wang Zheng's personal circumstances, he had inflated the solar system's reputation drastically. This was also something about the solar system people. Given a little to go off of, their impression of themselves swelled drastically. In truth, the solar system's years of lag would not disappear in an hour and a half. That was not realistic. This was something that was recognized in all aspects, whether military or social. This was a notion blown out of proportion. It was not something that Wang Zheng or Xiao Fei could change. They could not change others, but they could conduct themselves well. From another perspective, it could help to cool Aries College. What could one or two exceptions prove? Xiao Fei had not expected Wang Zheng to reply this way. In this period, things had been going smoothly, and even her brain had been set afire. Many people had come flocking to the name of Aries College, but was Aries College really prepared to handle such stock? Look at Aslan's Royal College. Although the Imperial Glory Battle team had lost, could Aries College be compared to them? The answer was obvious. Was the solar system really so lacking in talent? Unfortunately, that was not the case. There were countless people who had left. The key was a system to nurture and retain their talent. For Wang Zheng, what he needed to do was simple. If they met the Ghana team, he knew what to do. He was from Earth, and would return them an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. War was like that. With those words, Xiao Fei was no longer angry. Like Wang Zheng said, this could be an opportunity, one that the Ganons had provided. Achilles also felt regretful. Those of the moon recalled most fondly the era when the solar system was dominating. Back then, the moon people were the most popular. They had the most developed economic system, the latest technologies, and were the center of attention. But now, born to the Doyle family, Achilles understood the situation even better than Wang Zheng. Youngsters all wanted to make their names, but had no idea how to direct their strength. Faced with the social reality, they were too helpless. Wang Zheng smiled. Why so many long faces? I was just exchanging views with teacher Xiao Fei. It has nothing to do with us. If others are looking down on the solar system, then we'll just have to make them unable to. You all just like to complicate things. Anyone unconvinced will be beaten until they're convinced. Without ability, everything else is a dream. With strength, what are we afraid of? Lai Xin sneered. No ability, act cool, that was a fool. But with ability, what was there to be afraid of? The preliminary arrangements and the overall communication did not actually show Sig's skill level. From Aslan's point of view, the plan was clear. The preliminaries were for outsiders to watch. Basically, the preliminaries was used to recoup capital, and even make a tidy sum. The broadcast fees from various countries, advertising revenue, these were all sums that were nothing to sneeze at. This was where Kashawin excelled. Aslan would never do things that were not worth their while. They were not just fools with money. They had hyped Sig so much in the past, and come up with all kinds of new broadcasting ways to attract the attention of various countries. Countries had to buy broadcasting rights for their own country, right? That way, they not only recouped their losses, but also earned quite a bit. Besides, the level of hospitality that they delivered while organizing Sig was another way of promoting Aslan. Behold, this was the peak of nations. A true superpower of the Milky Way alliance that would attract every gaze. The preliminaries were for people to enjoy to bustle. In truth, the results had been surprising. Because the initial reception had been wonderful, Many countries had sent their strongest teams. The viewership was fairly astounding. When they entered the main competition, it would be a completely different story. They had earned enough, and then it would be time to find the strongest. Wang Zheng and his Saruman snake battle team? In truth, Kushawin had no time to bother with these things. To a prime minister who had to manage a million things, this was but an ant. For the whole SIG to end well, she needed Aslan to take the win. No other requests, just a win. Only Aslan's championship would be the true crowning glory. This time, Aslan had sent 3 teams. Imperial Glory and Aslan's 2 other teams. If that could not take the championship, then that would be a disgrace. As for that, Kushawin was very confident. Under their sky, there was only Aslan. Of course, while Aslan was hyped, Arbiter and the other countries were the same. Quite a few had recognized what Aslan was doing, and they all played along. It was only reasonable that they reaped commensurate rewards for their work. Asura Battle Team. Mars and Olivius had not participated. Arbiter's 2 teams had also sent reserves. The initial rounds were to satisfy the petty needs of the smaller countries. The real test was yet to come. The larger the competition, the more obvious the disparity in power, especially on a stage like SIG. The Dynasty Battle Team had sent Luo Fei to fight, while Lear did not. He was no fool. When no one else was going, he would be cheapening himself to go. There had been 2 Mayans as well, and they had beaten their opponents with ease. The Dynasty Battle Team had also attracted some attention. They were also from Elite Academy X, and the key was that they had 2 Mayans on their team. This had roused some curiosity towards the leader, Lear, who was from Earth. He was one of Elite Academy X's top 4, an Earthling. And there was another Earthling who was the greatest king. The comparison was inevitable. But at the competition venue, Lear had not even made an appearance. In front of him were 3 people: Zhou Yun, Pang Tong, and Anluda. The 3 Saint heirs had come looking for him, which spoke of the gravity of the situation. Pang Tong, Anluda, and Zhou Yun were a little different. Zhou Yun, or more accurately, the family that Zhou Yun was in, was the presence within the saint. He knew more than Lear in some aspects, while Zhou Yun and Anluda were closer to his situation. The only difference was that neither had been chosen as the reserve for the saint. But to their respective families, they did not have much of a choice once Saint had drawn the line. They followed Lear, and hoped that Lear would do well in the battle for Saint. Otherwise, although they would not be destroyed, they would lose the ability to speak in Saint, while those who followed the Saint would soar. Zhou Yun's expression was always calm, with resolve. Due to special reasons in the past, the Huban Fists family still belonged to the core level of Saint. Although they were not the strongest, their loyalty was enough. The competition in Saint was intense, and many powerful agents in Saint were still watching and biding their time. They would not give up easily. The weaker ones could gamble, but the influential ones had to maintain stable. The Earth representative was Lear. Zhou Yun's family had decided to be more proactive. The last examination could have been better. This SIG, they hoped that Lear would get a good score. Saint would not be as superficial as to only look at the result. Through the process, and the way matters were handled, commanding people, etc., there would be an overall assessment based on different factors. As to what extent that would happen, Zhou Yun had no idea. He was just a pawn, although he wanted to walk his own path. Leader Lear, forgive my bluntness, but given the Dynasty Battle Team's current lineup, I don't think we could reach the top 8. Anluda observed mildly. The 2 Mayans are in their own world. If we go up, I think top 4 is a guarantee. And that Luo Fei, that person might be loyal, but as the team progresses, he will definitely lag behind. I suggest making him a reserve. Pang Tong's expression was a little better, at least he was smiling. Lear was very calm. I understand your thoughts, but at the current stage, we don't need to show our full strength. This was different from the way that Zhou Yun respected him. These 2 wanted to cooperate, meaning that the families behind their backs were willing to stand with Lear. Of course, Lear would have to properly repay them back in the future. Kiki, I agree with the captain. Gentlemen, everyone holds the same goal. As far as I know, there is one other Saint candidate at this SIG. A pity that I don't know who they are. And I am not sure whether the opponent knows who we are. With ourselves exposed and the enemy in the shadows, we cannot show our strength too early. Although Huban fists were awesome, Zhou Yun himself had skills as well. This time, we must get a good result. Otherwise, how can we satisfy Saint? Besides, aside from the Mayans, we must raise the leader's influence and image. But this Luo Fei should not take part, whether in terms of image or ability. He will make the dynasty battle team a laughingstock. He simply learned a bit of the Ares art. Leader, you used to lack followers, but now you have us. As long as we do well, there will be more experts following us in the future, Pang Tong laughed. Lear smiled slightly. I understand your intentions. Luo Fei has, after all, followed me from the start. Leader, to do great things, one cannot be caught up in the small things. Letting feelings rule is not at all like the character of the Kronos family, Anluda said. Lear smiled. I hear you. Why did you come to me today? Pang Tong and Anluda exchanged looks, and nodded. In the preliminaries, we need Luo Fei to draw attention, and affect that we are weak. When everyone is underestimating us, we will have a chance. We don't need to rush to prove ourselves. Besides, the strongest are always at the back. What do you think? As for Lear's attitude and way of speaking, Pang Tong and Anluda were satisfied. No matter what, I thank you two and your families for standing on my side. Please. Saint originated from Earth. I think everyone hopes to see a son of Saint from Earth. Both were merely exchanging pleasantries. Only Zhou Yun felt that something was off. He had asked both here to express their loyalty to Lear, but it had become this lecture. Zhou Yun knew that both were slightly disdained families from Earth, because they had their time. Currently, other countries were doing well, and only the weakest who could not leave stayed on Earth. But Zhou Yun knew that Saint chose the son of Saint candidates based on talent and potential, and not ability. Saint was not short on that. With him in Lear's position, he would be furious, but Lear was smiling brightly, and it looked pretty sincere to him. Anluda and Pang Tong took their leave, but Zhou Yun remained. Captain, please do not blame them. Lear waved it off with a smile. I don't blame them. If I were them, I would also be full of doubt and worry. No matter what, helping me is a good thing. Zhou Yun could only nod. After Zhou Yun left, Lear's expression slowly froze, and his mouth curved slightly. Were these three here to help him, or were they a test? Either was possible. If Kronos was weaker in Saint, then Saint might be observing Lear's performance in this regard. Lear had never thought that this matter would be easy. He would look before he leapt. After all, Saint's power must be obtained. No matter what the opponent threw at him, he would receive it. Lear's goal at SIG was gradually clarifying. As for the preliminaries, their battle power was indeed slightly weaker. It was just a way for Aslan to recoup their capital. The real SIG would begin at the formal competition. Image, what dog's HT was that? They just had to pass the preliminaries. There was no difference whether one performed or not. Those who aimed to excel here were the real brain-dead ones. These ancient families had come to these revelations, and were too eager to show themselves, unwilling to be left out. Actually, their words had only put Lear more at ease. Such a shallow level was only too easy to control. Luo Fei to Lear was not too different from Zhang Shan to Wang Zheng. The fatty had followed him from Zeus College. More accurately, he had come from high school. This was special to even the aloof Lear. Of course, outsiders would not understand this. After their win, Fatty did not feel much. The most important thing was that he had fulfilled his mission. Boss was a great guy, except that he always gave him the heavy burdens. It would have been great if this matter had been passed onto broader shoulders. It seemed like his shoulders were quite broad, but they were all flesh. Boss, we won. Please don't leave the next round to me. I feel like the Mayans are pretty fierce. Luo Fei saw that Lear was in a good mood. Lear eyed Luo Fei and gently patted his shoulder, then left without a word. Luo Fei was good, really, but he had no ambition. Fatty Luo was rooted to the spot, and his face was panicky. This did not seem like Boss's usual self. This indeed made Luo Fei's heart jump a little. Actually, he had his dream as well, which was to be the best sidekick in history. Wang Zheng's situation was a tricky one. He had seen it as well. SIG's preliminaries was a pit dug by Aslan. Ai Xiaolu had already researched the information of their next opponent at the earliest time, and the result was clear. From the main force to the reserve, Wang Zheng and the rest had already watched it all. They had some skill, but were nothing special. Their ability X's was unremarkable, and Wang Zheng had no intention of fighting. This was also a way to hone the team. At the same time, it was a good chance for some of the rest to get exposure. There was no need for him to go. Aoli could take part in the next one as well. No wonder there were so many teams this time around, and so many people. It must be said that Kashawan had her methods. There was no reason why Aslan could not organize and SIG with purely high-level teams. But there was no need. They spent money and effort in order to show off. Aslan did not do needless things. Otherwise, they would not be where they were today. At Yan Xiaosu's side, he had an issue. It seemed like everything had been prepared, save the one last crucial factor. Without the experience and foundations needed for such a large project, the signs were starting to show. In the past, route construction would definitely be anchored by a major delivery group. And now this entire project lacked such a core. Yan Xiaoshu had initially thought of handling it himself. He was unwilling to disturb Wang Zheng during SIG, but now the reality was pressing. If the project could not be confirmed soon, it might change. After all, the situation on Maklu was not very stable. Tyrant Su saw it as birds in the bush. Although they had earned quite a sum in these few years, if this project crumbled, the entire co-group would follow. The business world also worked that way. Find a shipping company? Where? Ai Xiaolu. Suddenly, Wang Zheng's brain flashed. Galaxy Hu Group. That was an honest-to-goodness major shipping company, but would it work? If it was his own business, Wang Zheng might not mind as much, but Yan Xiaoshu had come pleading for help, and Wang Zheng had to think of something. It was at least worth a shot. After all, the preliminaries was nothing, he should do something proactive. That was why Wang Zheng was sending a message to Mu Fengchun, saying that there had been a misunderstanding last time, and if Dong was free, would she like to meet him again? This overjoyed Mu Fengchun, who immediately contacted Wang Lengxi. Very quickly, Dong Skylink number was in his hand. This number had been in his hand for half the day, but Wang Zheng was still hesitating. But thinking of Tyrant Su, he had to sacrifice his own pride. Dong had the highest standards among the four. It was preliminary level, and none attracted their interest, Aslan included. Of course, this competition was still extremely hot with the rest of the world, and the weaker teams were fighting intensely. If two closely matched teams fought, it was even more thrilling. The amateurs enjoyed the bustle, and the professionals watched the hustle. From the way things were going, it was not that different from Elite Academy X battles. Of course, there was a marked difference in skill level of Earth rank warriors, but Earth rank fighters at this level were few and far between. Just when everyone was getting bored, Dong suddenly received an unknown message, and was stunned after seeing the message. Hello, student Dong Wang Zheng here. Could we meet? I have something important to discuss with you. Dong was a little confused. At this time, Qian Shuidi had flounced over and read it out. The other two were stunned. Especially Lin Weiyan. This was a bolt from the blue. Although she had her own revelation, she had agonized over her decision countless times. Even up to the point she carried it out, she had been unsure. Who would have thought Wang Zheng would actually take an interest in Dong Impossible. Lin Weiyan burst. What's impossible? Qian Shuidi started. I mean, he doesn't seem like a proactive guy. Weiyan, him and your sister are a thing of the past. And it was indeed a difficult time. Why not let our Dong try? Yang Ruolyu came over to clasp Weiyan. Our Weiyan is so soft and fragrant. I just want to take a bite. Go away, you female pervert. Weiyan hurriedly made her escape. Yang Ruolyu's face was the picture of innocence. Dong reply to him. What are you afraid of? In truth, even without their urging, Dong had already taken an interest in Wang Zheng. But her female reservations had hindered her. She had been worried by this, but now that he had taken the initiative, she did not need to worry about it. Actually, deep down, she, as well as others, had become curious about the man who had moved Her Highness Aina. Prime Minister Kashawan was as busy as Wang Zheng had expected. But Wang Jung had underestimated himself. What's his situation? Already seen through the preliminaries. His attitude is relaxed. Seems like he had no intentions of competing in this initial competition, the secretary respectfully replied. He was curious, but would never express the curiosity. Even if it was Elite Academy X's greatest king, this punk called Wang Jung did not have the qualifications to occupy the Prime Minister's time. Kushawan nodded slightly. Anything else? Galaxy Who Group seems to be interested in Wang Jung. Seems like two are matchmaking, the secretary said. He knew the Prime Minister's habits. She would not let the slightest detail pass. Oh, Kushawan laughed. What do you think of this youngster? The secretary pondered it for a moment. Any who made it to Kushawan's radar had to be of certain ability and quality. Although his current ability does not seem much, he started from the bottom. It can be counted as a great talent to have come this far from beginning on Earth. The secretary still gave a moderate evaluation. Co Group has made a name for themselves now as well. Kushawan saw through her secretary at once. She knew that this was high praise. Actually, Kushawan's own evaluation was higher. If that were not the case, she would not have to personally intervene back then just to break them apart. That such a person could not be used for Aslan was a pity. But the implications of Aina's marital affairs were too grave. It could not be allowed. But if it were the Who Group, that might be a good thing. For this period, this will be your main duty. Yes, Your Excellency. The secretary did not ask why. It was rare for the Prime Minister to be so concerned about something. He knew what he had to do. Oh, and if it's convenient, do that thing. No traces, of course. To do great things, one could not be caught up in the small details. If Wang Jung could return to Aslan through this, it would be a good thing. Those clashes in the past meant nothing. SIG had gotten off to a roaring start, but many of the strongest teams had already seen through the strengths and weaknesses, and had each begun to train their own reserve lineup, allowing them to be exposed to the public. After bitter fighting for Saruman Snake, the arena was hot. There was some back and forth, and then Saruman Snake prevailed. After the competition, Saruman Snake received some criticism and doubt. As the greatest king, their reserve lineup was a little bare. The other seeded teams finished their battles within 10 minutes. The moment it began, the killing time did not exceed 1 minute. A complete shutdown, and that was their reserve. The difference between Saruman Snake's reserves and core force was quite huge. But Wang Jung and the rest did not care about these. The best possible approach for Elite Academy X was to crawl out of this underestimated and ignored. As for Aeoli and the rest, they had fulfilled their wish to compete on the SIG stage. They were very grateful in their hearts. As for performance, they had tried their best. Perhaps the expectations of others had been too high, hoping that Saruman Snake would crush. But in truth any team that made it to SIG was not bad. Ai Xiaolu looked at Wang Jung with a forced smile. I heard you made a date? Wang Jung rubbed his nose. I told Luo not to bandy it around. TCH, you're afraid of gossip after dating? You expect to enter through who? Ai Xiaolu smiled. She did not think that Wang Jung had any interest towards Dong. Wang Jung did not lack for beauty around him, and she had yet to see him swayed. What appeal could a little girl have for him? She was completely unqualified for Wang Jung to make the first move on. What do you think? If Hu is willing to participate, that's best. Different professions are different worlds. Even a group like our Aishi Financial Group is not disposed to stick our nose into this type of business. Hu is comfortably in the top 5 shipping groups in the Milky Way Alliance. They're qualified. The question is their appetite, Aishi Financial Group said. A slight grin. Or you could sacrifice yourself and set the wench swooning. She will handle her house. High chance of success. Wang Jung did not know whether to laugh or cry. What do you take me for? Some playboy? I just wanted the opportunity to raise the proposal. This project is good. If they're interested, good. If they're not, well, I tried. I can't just pass up on such an opportunity just to save my face. You wouldn't have taken a liking to Yan Xiaoshu, would you? He already has a wife. You should stop your coveting, Ai Xiaolu teased. Making fun of Wang Jung was a very interesting business, and one of Ai Xiaolu's favorite things to do. Kiki, student Xiaolu, please be more proper and get to your point. I know you must have something. Wang Zheng understood Ai Xiaolu well. Teasing was always her prelude to the main course. This was mutual affinity. It did not sound like much, but Ai Xiaolu was very caught up with it. Intelligence has delivered. The main competition will be harsh from the get-go. It's said that there are no death quotas. You had best prepare. Aslan is Aslan after all. The front part is some banging of heads to satisfy the masses. But in the end there has to be an iteration that becomes the benchmark for Sig. Kashawan cannot afford the blow to her pride. Oh, that's a good thing, Wang Zheng said. The preliminaries level was really too low. It was truly not worth their attendance. Don't get too cocky now. Aslan's standard is higher than Elite Academy X's. They won't be any worse. Historically, they're quite similar to Elite Academy X's quality. Di Maria types are the specialty of Aslan. But the stable Aslan military types are the true terror in this world. It's said that the main competition is split into two parts. One is targeted at the members, the other at the leader. Two-tiered standards, that's right, elimination format. Only those qualified can enter the competition, however few there might be, Ai Xiaolu said. This was not a good deal for Saruman's Snake Battle Team. Saruman's Snake Battle Team was a full package. Their group ability far exceeded individual ability, but Aslan had chosen this route. This might be a little punishing. As for leader qualifications, that was clear. If the leader was eliminated, they could forget about the rest. It was time to show one's true power. The spirit may be willing, but the flesh might be weak. Wang Zheng smiled. That's a good thing. If we keep on waiting like this, I'll rust. When I finish settling the root matter, I can focus on waiting. Ai Xiaolu smiled as well. She liked Wang Zheng's manner. There was definitely a challenge. She did not believe Wang Zheng was invincible. But Wang Zheng's excitement and anticipation towards challenge lit the fire in Ai Xiaolu's own heart. Hearing this news, even Wang Zheng was full of anticipation. Perhaps this qualification that Aslan had prepared would help him achieve a breakthrough. Each challenge was an opportunity. The design of each test had been through revisions and thought. They were not only to test a fighter's ability. If done well, a fighter could glean many insights through them. It seemed like Elite Academy X was shaping up. Now it was up to Aslan as to whether they would bring surprises. Kashawan the Dowager might not like them, but she had to admit they were capable. Actually, within the teams, all those capable of entering the main competition had already received the news. After the preliminaries ended, a total of 128 teams would be chosen, but the main competition only needed 64. Half would be eliminated in the qualifiers. Saying so, they had to follow up on the elimination. Aslan had to bring out the guns now. 1 meter of galaxy, Wang Zheng meeting Dong Er. The little girl in front of him was about the same size as Weiyan. Already matchmaking, Wang Zheng was also speechless. What were the adults thinking? Of course, when in Rome. Although Aslan was developed, but the aristocrats were rather conservative in this regard. They were strictly disciplined, and this was the method to Aslan's stable reign. I'm so sorry about last time, Dong Er said. She surveyed Wang Zheng from far with her big eyes. This person was really not that fetching. Or at least, he was different from the Aslan handsome. But for some reason, he smelled so good. It was not fragrant, but warm. Wang Zheng smiled. No matter. If I were in your shoes, I'm afraid I would do the same. Are you wearing perfume? Dong Er suddenly asked curiously. Perfume? Wang Zheng started, bemused. I have never used such a thing in my life. Dong Er rubbed her cute little nose. But there's a very comforting smell from your body. In the adjacent room, 3 people were laughing loudly. Oh no, our Dong Er has come to puberty, Ouyang Ruolyu said. There is indeed a curious smell from his body, Weiyan said. Oh, the legendary man smell? TCH, you two wenches. What do you know of men? Ouyang Ruolyu disdainfully said. That means you do know. All 3 were laughing together, but Wang Zheng and Dong Er were even happier. At least Dong Er was elated. She had never come across anyone like Wang Zheng before. He had come from a completely different life. The moment Dong Er opened the floodgates, she could not stop. From Earth to Elite Academy X, Wang Zheng refused her nothing. After all, he had a request, but setting up a good atmosphere was better. I have a question, but may I ask it? Dong-er suddenly asked, a little shy. Wang Jung smiled, there's not much that I hide. I heard that Her Highness Aina liked you in the past. Dong-er asked the most burning question in her heart. Without seeing for her own eyes, she had never thought that any man would be fit for Princess Aina. Wang Jung was stunned. He pondered it for a while, then smiled. Actually, it was me with the crush. I didn't think that it would bring so much inconvenience to her. Seeing Wang Jung's smile, there was a wrenching in Wei Yan's heart. Her eyes were red. She was clear that it had been a mutual interest, not a crush. This guy isn't bad. He mounts up. Yang Ruolyu was a little surprised. Any other man would have boasted. Men just like to show off. They would not be able to lower their head about something like this. Dong-er was a little surprised, but very happy. As for Wang Jung having girlfriends before, she did not mind. It would be strange at this age if he had not. And that his ex was Princess Aina was something you could hold your head high about. I feel like we can be friends, Dong-er said. This person was not detestable. Wang Jung smiled. He could feel that girls like her were flowers in the greenhouse. They were clever, and had a good heart, but were on a different class from him. His future was full of challenge and killings. It was a path full of thistles. Any who wanted to be his friend had to be like Ai Xiaolu. Without the right frame of mind, they would get hurt. I came this time wanting to ask for your help on something, and it's also an opportunity, Wang Jung said. Oh, go on, go on. I know Hu Group is a famous shipping company. My friend's Co-Group has a shipping line that needs a professional partner. Dong-er was stunned for half a beat. This person had asked her out for this? In the adjourning room, 3 jaws had dropped as well. Was this man a fool? His EQ was so low, it left one marveling. At such a time, the girl had already made her interest clear. Being friends was basically the first step cleared. But he had suddenly come up with such a wet blanket. You mean the shipping line from Tita to Maklu, right? Dong-er was not too surprised. You're aware? That surprised Wang Jung. Dong-er did not know what to say. Of course she knew. Firstly, she was not an idiot. Those like her had received the highest echelon of elite education, and her own family was even more professional. Besides, it was related to Wang Jung. How could she not know? But to raise something like this at this time, what could Wang Jung be intending? Suddenly, Dong-er understood. Wang Jung said this to fix the notion of friend, and did not want to take this a step further. He meant that he did not wish for their relationship to develop further. Clever people did not need to speak too directly. At the same time, he had given Dong-er enough reason to reject his excuse. Dong-er understood, but she was not happy. Perhaps she really could not compare to Her Highness Aina, but what about the rest? Besides Princess Aina, she would not bow to anybody. In the next room, her 3 companions were going crazy, waiting on Dong-er. If this had been Yang Ruolyu, she would have beaten him up. Just as everyone was waiting on Dong-er to attack, Dong-er suddenly smiled. You pose a difficult question. How about this? If your Saruman snake battle team enters the top 8, I'll give it a try. Top 4, and I'll make a fuss in front of my mother. And if we win? Wang Jung asked. Ai Xiaolu had said that Hu was the most suitable right now, especially in the foundational construction phase of the route. This group was undoubtedly the perfect fit. Win? Dong-er was stunned. This person really slighted all the heroes in this world. This was Aslan. If you win, then it will definitely happen, Dong-er said. Wang Jung nodded. A deal. Compared to the cuter girls aside from Dong-er, he preferred her more serious side. That's right. Who is the person in charge of Co-Group? I'll go find out more about the situation first, Dong-er suddenly asked. Yan Xiaoshu. Or I could put you in touch. Not necessary. Not a problem for me. Dong-er smiled slightly. Sounded like a guy. That was good. Finished with the main event, Wang Jung made his excuse and left. What else was more important than Sig? After Wang Jung left, the other 3 girls walked out. Dong-er, what is going on? If I were you, I would beat him up first. So crass, Yang Ruolyu burst. And to think he actually dared to talk about the championship. What arrogance, where does it come from? Our Dong-er is moved, Qian Shuidi observed with equanimity. No way. Dong you like these types? Wei asked. Taste changes, right? Besides, my family is twisting my arm. Rather than an unreliable type, using him as a meat shield isn't bad. At least I can have some good times. Dong smiled. She had to go back and understand the situation. The preliminaries had carried on in full swing for 7 days, and the final 128 teams had emerged. At this stage, the broadcast to the outside world was switched off. The preliminaries' conduct did not pose much of a danger. Any injuries were minor, but now it was an actual military competition, and life and death were on the line. This was not suitable for a large-scale broadcast. Besides, many important people from the military world would be attending the main event. The previous section was just noise. And these clever foxes were clear that many would not be happy with Aslan's way of doing things. But they could not say it. After all, there was no free lunch in the world. Formal evaluation begins. It was still the same venue, but now there were only 128 captains left. Akerlef looked down at the 128 fighters. There was a very clear difference from the last time. Less chatter, and the venue no longer looked like a market. I think all of you already know that what follows is the qualifiers. As a leader and member competition, elimination of the leader will immediately eliminate the team. If the team does not have numbers to make the 4, then they are also eliminated, Akerlef stated emotionlessly. There was still no sound in the venue. All of you are Ability X users, and I know many among you are Earth rank. That is why your first test is Ability X. The 128 were quickly divided into 4 groups. There was no tiering system here, just plain and simple groups. Outside the venue, transport hovercraft had been prepared, and everyone moved quickly. There was no chatter from start to end. The formal competition had begun. What was to come only asked for brains in action, no mouth. Although perhaps teeth could be a weapon. The 32 people sitting in the hovercraft did not say a word. Nobody knew what awaited them, or where they were going. They did not even know what the situation of their own members was. As they alighted from the hovercraft, each person was given a hood. When Wang Zheng took it off, he found himself in a sealed room which felt like a laboratory. Sit there, the soldier beside him said without emotion. Wang Zheng sat on the chair. The moment he sat, his entire body was controlled. Upcoming is an Ability X test. Endure 10 minutes for stability. The weakest 10 are eliminated. Wang Zheng nodded. At the same time in tens of other rooms, the other captains were undergoing the same tests as Wang Zheng. This was Aslan's military laboratory base. The teams and military from the various countries were all present. Zhang Feng was in the crowd as well. The Aslan Royal College's head, Lin Hong, was doing the explanation. This is the newest equipment we researched to determine the cerebral functions of humans. We deploy it in this test. After about 5 minutes, we will know a user's limits and then determine the endurance. Ability to endure for 5 minutes without too much of a strain is the sign of basic Ability X. Perhaps Ability X came in many different forms, but in the end it was a matter of class. For example, Time Stop could only be used on a roughly equal or lower class. It would be heavily discounted against strong users. That was why Lin Hong used this to demonstrate an Ability X user's might. Professor Lin. As for the user response, is it a fixed simulation model or a subconscious model? Normally we use the fixed simulation model and begin with the basics to determine the stability of the fighter. But this test will use the subconscious model. After all, the participants this time around are all elites from various countries, and leaders to boot. The other members will undergo a fixed simulation model. Lin Hong replied smilingly. The generals from various countries did not mind these things. They could directly see these warriors' Ability X peak, their tenacity, as well as their connectivity with the world. It could be said that in a state where Ability X was gradually entering Special Forces skirmishes, elevating a warrior's Ability X had become the most important research direction for all countries. And in this regard, Aslan had again surprised them. As the machine whirred to life, Wang Zheng's vision blacked. When he opened his eyes again, he saw a dusty, yellow desert. Death and desolation stretched as far as the eye could see. The sky was dim and overcast, as though it would fall at any time. Below his feet, the ground was bleak. The passing of life. Wang Zheng frowned. In this process, his own life was flowing away as well. At this moment, on the general's screen, the participants' data began to appear. The most astounding was Dina Atlas from Atlantis, peak 85, tenacity 80, connectivity 95. Their collective jaws dropped, Lin Hong included. It was no secret that the Atlanteans were strong in this regard, but in terms of objective numbers, it was indeed frightening. Lin Feng, captain of the Sword Shield Rose battle team, he did the Royal College proud. Peak 78, tenacity 85, connectivity 80. Aragorn, Arbiter Warrior Soul College, peak 75, tenacity 90, connectivity 76. Chichin Nakai, Leah Sphinx battle team captain, peak power 85, tenacity 85, connectivity 85. This ex-leaderboard's character did not disappoint. The generals firstly watched for their own members. Such a test was not absolute, but it could reflect a fighter's current state to a large extent, and at present, Aslan was perhaps the only one in the world capable of providing these three figures. The top 10 seeded teams' captains basically averaged 75 and above. This was the mark of a first-rate team. But Zhang Feng's expression was weird. Actually, everyone's expression was weird. Because the greatest king who represented Elite Academy X, Wang so-and-so. Peak 28, tenacity 50, connectivity 0, some sort of mistake? Even Lin Feng and the rest were stunned. To date, more than half had undergone the test in the first wave, and others were still beginning to undergo it. Wang Zheng comfortably held the bottom. Basically, the average was 60 and above, 70 and above were excellent, and the strongest class ranged around 85. For Wang Zheng, it was no longer even a question of qualifying or not. This was a score so poor, it boggled the mind. This left even Zhang Feng a little embarrassed. Machine error? But it seemed too much of a coincidence. Everyone else's was accurate, just Wang Zheng's. Luckily, Mars and Olivia's average scores were above 75. The Arbiter's tenacity led the Milky Way Alliance, and no one could match them. Their inner grit was unparalleled. And among the humans, the Aslan average was difficult for others to catch up with. Of course, this accepted the cream from other countries' crop. Chichin Nakai, for example. No one really bothered too much about this, because such a person should not even appear at SIG. It was tolerated that Leah Sphinx had fielded this curveball, but they would not mention it further. 10 minutes was relatively quick for the spectators, and the reliability of the data was fairly high. It proved that the ability and foundation of these youngsters was fairly solid. Those who could don the mantle of leader were indeed uncommon. It was just this Wang Zheng that was too much of a disgrace. Elite Academy X's greatest king, and Aslan had also specially put him into first place. Was this a joke? Wang Zheng was oblivious to what was happening outside, but his world made him wish he were dead. Wang Zheng could already feel an enormous danger. His life seemed to be sucked dry by this desert world. How could one person replenish a world? The bleak vastness, did this reflect his own shortcomings in the earth element? Wang Zheng's understanding of the 5 elements had been derived from special circumstances, and never had there been danger like this. At this level, even 100 of himself would not be sufficient. Were they trying to turn him into human bacon? Hallucination. This was a hallucination? Wang Zheng delivered a sound slap to himself. Damn, useless. At this time, it was not even a question of elimination. If the world did not stop, he might die here. His body might be fine, but the energy drain would turn him into a vegetable. External wounds, given the current medical development, were assured of recovery, but mental wounds were still unbreached by technology. 10 minutes had already passed. Many testes had already finished the test, and new testes had entered. The results were good. This year's leaders dared not even to step out the door unless they had formidable ability X. But Wang Zheng, damn, not only had it not risen, it was falling. One has to know that the bottom 10 would be directly eliminated. As long as the machine was not broken and no other reason could be found, then there was no argument to be had. No matter how well you fought, you had to pass this stage, and in truth, such a glaring lack in mental energy could not possibly translate to a good result subsequently. The problem was that it was happening to Wang Zheng. That was weird. He was an Earth rank warrior, and his mental power had reached a level where his average should be about 80. That should be easily attainable, but Wang Zheng's tenacity had fallen to 32. At this time, although Wang Zheng could already choose to give up the examination, there was a sudden wave in his energy. Either that or the number was just too low. There was danger. Everyone looked at Zhang Feng. General Zhang Feng, under such circumstances, I suggest that Wang Zheng end the examination. 16 minutes. Wang Zheng, 19, 22, 0. It seemed like he might die at any moment. The various team captains had already finished the test and left the room. They could see the scores on the projected screen. Mental energy constants. Perhaps some still hid their talent. After all, the test was not completely true. Different stimulations occurred under different environments. The experts, like Chichin, could control it. Simulated triggers were not absolute, and those who were experienced in battle could tell the difference. Seeing the scores above, those on the first tier were smiling. They looked at each other, acknowledging their future opponents. Those of the same level had the potential to fight. When the disparity was too great, there was no battle ability to speak of. They would be destroyed. But when everyone looked at the bottom person, they were all shocked. Wang Zheng was about to be directly eliminated? After more than 10 minutes, Wang Zheng's statistics were still decreasing. 9, 12, 0. What was happening here? Lin Hong frowned. He knew this Wang Zheng. His performance in IG back then had been stellar. He had foundations in physics, and his ability X was said to be formidable. How could this be? The machine would not be at fault. Someone had already checked it, and it was functioning normally. This was the true situation of Wang Zheng. Once the number hits 0, a person will die. There's no way to save him. General Zhang Feng, I must remind you of this point. Although life and death were accepted, needless death was not. The test simply said that it might happen after 10 minutes, but not how long after 10 minutes it would happen. But everyone knew that such things could not be dragged on for too long. The longer it was, the larger the strain, and the numbers would continue to decrease. And this was just the start. Prolonged strain was no good news either. The favored Wang Zheng had given everyone a surprise from the get-go. Zhang Feng was conflicted. If they were directly eliminated in the first round, then the matter of the 12 paths would end there. Most crucially, Wang Zheng had not changed in this period. How could his ability X weaken to this extent? In the test room, Wang Zheng's face was drained of all color, while in the spiritual world, he could not stand anymore. Everything was useless. Even if he had the strength, there was no avenue to use it. He had no idea what the problem was, nor how to deal with it. The land was barren. This was the element of earth. Why did this have to come out? He completely did not understand earth element. Barren land, why barren? Wang Zheng's statistics continued to decline. The alarm had already begun to ring. Only Lin Hong and Zhang Feng could stop this test, but in truth, only the team would decide. Lin Hong was the facilitator, and he should not interfere. The numbers continued to fall. 5, 8, 0. The participants who had finished the test were watching on as well. Lear was frowning, while everyone else was relaxed. Only Lear felt like something was wrong. What was that damned Wang Zheng playing at? His physical and mental ability were undoubtedly strong. He could not possibly fail a test like this, unless he was up to something. Actually, there was a difference between Wang Zheng and the rest. Each testee had entered telling themselves that this was a test, and they had to control themselves well. But Wang Zheng had entered seeing if he could be wholly tested, and if he could make a breakthrough. This was a trial that had to be faced seriously. The test would naturally react to one's subconscious. Out of Wang Zheng's 5 elements, his earth and metal were weakest. Some laughed, some brooded. Evidently, no one had expected that their strongest opponent was about to be eliminated in the first round. This was too ridiculous. They were not taking pleasure in his pain per se, but as an opponent, there was a curious joy. Lear stared unblinkingly as the numbers changed on the screen. They were about to hit the bottom, and the bottom meant death. But Lear did not believe that Wang Zheng would die here. This had to be his trick, some trick. Di Maria was about to die from joy. If Wang Zheng lost just like that, the championship was virtually his. Metal begets water. Water begets wood. Wood begets fire. Fire begets earth. Earth begets metal. Fire begets earth. Suddenly, Wang Zheng's mind cleared. Fire brings forth earth. At that moment, Wang Zheng's spirit had already entered an empty state. At his lowest, he had found his true state. His mastery of fire ability was mature. The way that the five elements complemented and conflicted with each other was not something that the physical world could see, it was a feeling. And that instant of comprehension would last forever. Zhang Feng naturally could not watch Wang Zheng die before his very eyes. Just as he was about to stop it, the numbers changed. Just as the mental energy was about to hit rock bottom, it suddenly shot up like a rocket. Shing shing shing, it broke 50, 60, 70, 80, 85. The deficiencies of earth was not something that water could replenish, it was the power of fire. Fire brings forth earth. The power of earth becomes vigorous. Wave after wave of power surged into him through his feet. In that instant, Wang Zheng felt like he could move the heavens and earth themselves. Earth begets metal. Boom, today, I will rend. This earth, I cleave. The power of keen metal. Wang Zheng's fist thundered out, and the earth fissured. Following that, Wang Zheng's single punch blew through the air. Rumble. This was a true punch. Metal begets water. Fearsome frost energy materialized in an instant. Even time itself was frozen. Frost ability was Wang Zheng's most familiar, a boon from Meng Tian, and also that which Wang Zheng understood the most thoroughly among the five affinities. Outside, peak 90, tenacity 95, connectivity 90. Both inside and outside, there was no sound. FCK, what was going on? Was he playing a prank? A wave of chatter began in the hall. The generals were discussing, heads bent. How could this happen? Zhang Feng also did not know what tricks this boy was up to. Wang Zheng was clearly not a prankster. He must have met with something, and then used the opportunity to better himself. Lear's eyes flashed. He knew that this would happen. This guy was like a cockroach. Even if he was going to die, he would not die here. Water begets earth. Life's moisture, that complemented the rest. Within the wood element, wind was Wang Zheng's domain. The fury of a tempest had unstoppable power, but the finesse of wind, the warmth of wind, the life of wind. Wood begets fire. Wang Zheng had finally completed his first mini-orbit of the five elements. Although his metal and earth were weaker, the affinities complemented one another. This was a world of difference from the rupture. Boom! In front of Wang Zheng's eyes was a world completely brimming with life. This was the domain of the five elements. He had finally entered it. Wang Zheng was in, but the outside world was out of their minds. Peak 99, tenacity 99, connectivity 99. Having finished his orbit of the five elements, Wang Zheng was engrossed in the subliminities of the world. He was wary of being disturbed. What he needed to do was firmly fix this sensation in his mind. And because the workers needed this figure to hold constant for 5 minutes, nobody bothered him, and that made him. If he were to be roused during this time, the effect would be a severe penalty, and he might even be injured. In the 5 minutes, everyone else was ambivalent. This numbers sat like a mountain on their heads. Perhaps the numbers did not mean much, but the key was that they had been celebrating just now. It has to be said that Wang Zheng had successfully drawn more hate. He became the #1 target for many. Lin Hong stared open-mouthed at the figure. Impossible. Forget 99, he had let the Aslan top brass set each number at 100, but no one could reach 99. Although those like Qichin were strong, sub 90 and over 90 were completely different notions. And achieving 99 in all three aspects was something else altogether. How was this possible? Humans should not be able to reach such perfection in peak power, tenacity, and connectivity, unless they were machines. Could the machine be malfunctioning? Now it was Lin Hong's turn to doubt. But a pity that Wang Zheng was not his experimental subject. As long as the numbers were fine, Wang Zheng would pass. Everyone could see not only their numbers, but also those of others. Of course, some had never seen these before, but they already had a rough sense. This punk Wang Zheng is really going to surprise us. Bolette laughed. I like this kid. Back then at IG, Lieutenant General Bolette had favored Wang Zheng. Wang Zheng's unearthing had brought the name of Golden Wheel Battle King to the world. And now everyone only remembered the Golden Wheel Battle King, but who still recalled the person who had rediscovered it. In the last IG, he could not reach the end. This time, I want to see how far he can go. Wang Zheng's performance had awakened many memories. Back then, he was the leader of Callow youths at IG. It was fresh in their minds now. After so much time, it looked like this youngster from Earth had lost none of his touch. The equipment on Wang Zheng's body was freed. He opened his eyes, and some static flicked out. The official in charge stepped back involuntarily. Wang Zheng smiled slightly. The awesome aura he had just realized just vanished. Thank you. Did I pass? Wang Zheng rotated his wrists. The official nodded dumbly. After Wang Zheng left, he would discover that he was completely soaked. The door opened. Wang Zheng found out that the other 127 had already left. All 127 pairs of eyes were trained on Wang Zheng. Their eyes were filled with words, disbelief, and enmity. The screen refreshed. Everyone began to look for their own team's scores. It successively appeared. For those with more members, the elimination rate for average members was extremely high. Even at this level, the reserves were mostly eliminated. It seemed like even before they began, many could already start to enjoy their Aslan holiday. Wang Zheng looked at his own Saruman Snake battle team. Achilles, Lai Xin, Mu Zhen, Zhang Shan, Snow Li, and Vincent had passed, but Takumi and Aoli had been eliminated. This was a surprise. But at least they still maintained a complete lineup. Others were assessing their own teams as well. Presently, 15 teams had been eliminated. 10 because of their leader, and another 5 because they lacked members. But it was not as though Wang Zheng felt no pressure. The compilation of results was extremely quick. Although Wang Zheng had displayed godlike potential, Saruman Snake's overall score was not even in the top 10. The Aslan Empire's 2 teams occupied first and second. Closely following was Arbiter's 2 teams. In 5th place was Elite Academy X's Asura battle team. That was the current top 5. Many breathed a sigh of relief. They finally understood where the problem with Saruman Snake was. As the captain, the distance between Wang Zheng and his members was huge. As long as they dealt with Wang Zheng, Saruman Snake was nothing. Of course, this dealing would not be in idiotic ways like Mossy Team's Sabi had tried.